Welcome to the JB Media Digital Drop-In. This is Sarah. I'm the co-founder and lead instructor of the JB Media Institute. And I'm here today, as usual, for our monthly free webinar, the Digital Drop-In, which today is going to focus mainly on the 5 steps to creating a successful content marketing strategy. And I see we've got some other people hopping in, so welcome. So glad you're here, and I look forward to sharing some ideas with you today. I've also got Justin Bellamy on the line. He's the co-founder of the JB Media Institute and also the owner of the JB Media Group, which is a marketing agency here in Asheville. He's also one of the owners of Romantic Asheville. So he'll be on the call today to answer questions as we go along. So again, as we start through this topic, feel free to drop questions into the chat or to the Q&A. I'll be monitoring both of those things. And again, we've still got some people filling out our poll, but it looks like we've got an even split right now. About 40% of you are saying, yes, I have a content marketing strategy. 40% are saying, no, I don't have one. And 20% of you are saying, you're not sure if you have one or not. So again, if you want to contribute to the poll, feel free to hop in. But I'm excited to know that we've got some people who are really in that questioning stage. We've got other people that are already on track with some type of strategy, and other people that need to really sort of put one together. And maybe you already have content in place. You just really don't know how to get it out there. So we're going to talk about all of those different things. And like I said, I really want to encourage everyone to go ahead and chat in questions, drop them in the Q&A, and let's make this a conversation for today's call. So the first thing that I want to talk about in relationship to content marketing strategy is that there's a number of buzzwords out there around this topic. And I did a little bit of research over the last couple of weeks to really see how are the other experts categorizing the different kind of buzzwords or terms that we use when it comes to content marketing. And I just wanted to kind of break down a perspective so that if you're reading about these topics online, you're learning by yourself on the internet by reading different articles or taking different classes or programs, that you can kind of understand what the macro, the larger view is, all the way down to the micro view. So typically what I've found in looking at what all the experts are saying is people sort of interchange the words content strategy, content marketing strategy, and content plan. And even though they are all obviously related and very similar, I did sort of find a consensus from the experts of what these things exactly are. And so you can kind of understand, like I said, how they relate to each other. So the first thing I think people often talk about is just the content strategy itself. And this really has to do with not necessarily how you're going to directly market. We're not at that stage yet when we're looking at this broader perspective, but really kind of digging into the content strategy for your whole business. And this is something I think I've really learned by watching Justin's agency, is that you sort of have to move into these different areas of content marketing strategy itself and then the content plan, which is more tactical. But the content strategy is this bigger view that says, at this point, every business, every organization, every brand needs to have some kind of understanding of how they generate content within their business, what types of content they already have available. So many businesses and organizations have promoted themselves for some time, right? Whether it's a couple years or 10 years or 20 years, and you actually have content existing inside of your business already. There's things that you could be repurposing. There's content on your website, possibly on your blog that's older that you haven't been maximizing. There are different people inside of your organization that might work as great representatives around different topics or thought leaders. So to me, the content strategy is sort of bigger. Before we start digging into the marketing, we really want to look at the assets that the brand has. Right? So what have you been saying in the past? What kind of messaging has been going out? When have you gotten attention, whether it's digital, print, or otherwise? right? When were you featured on a particular show, whether it's radio or TV? When did you actually get articles printed about you in different magazines or newspapers? How has your digital strategy gone so far? Where are you seeing some positives? So I think it's about thinking really holistically about the approach, because again, digitally, we often find amazing opportunities for fresh content or for taking content that's been around for a while and really giving it kind of a facelift, giving it a bigger impact and utilizing it to go further. So this is about thinking of the business as a whole, the brand as a whole, and all the different ways that you're going to be communicating and sharing different messages. The content marketing strategy is then the next step, which is what we're really going to talk about today. And the content marketing strategy, to me, is about the whole process itself, not just what do we have available and what are our assets and resources, but now what are we going to create and why, right? So how are we going to go out there and talk about these different messages and different pieces? We really want to start digging into the purpose behind the content we're creating. And I talk about this a lot, mostly because I feel like a lot of times we start getting in this robot mode, and we're just making content for the sake of making it because everybody says we have to. And I feel like that is almost, in my opinion, it leads you to a lot of content fatigue. It leads you to, in my opinion, a real limiting restriction on your creativity, because you get into this grind and you're no longer connected to the real purpose of what you're saying. So to me, when we move from that bigger strategy, that bigger perspective, into how we're going to do the content and marketing itself, I feel like that's where we start to dig a little deeper into the details, really find our passions, our motivations, and that helps us make decisions about where we should actually be, which channels and things like that. And so I see we've got a couple comments. David, your best approach is lengthy videos on Facebook, trying to build a community of followers. You're a one-man show, and creating content takes me away from making product. How to balance it is all problematic. And so that, I think, is a very common problem that people have, David. You're definitely not alone when it comes to feeling like, okay, I need to make this content, but while I'm doing that, I still have to make sure that my workflow for actually producing the products or the services or whatever it is that I'm marketing, I have to make sure that I have time for both of these things. And especially as someone who's been a sole proprietor, and I now have small teams with both of my companies, but I was a sole proprietor for a long time. It takes a lot of, I think, prioritization, as well as leveraging your talents and knowing when to outsource things. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but I really understand that sort of struggle, right? Especially as a business owner, because if you're doing your own marketing, you're really trying to figure out what percentage of my time is spent working to create what I'm selling to people, what part of my time is spent promoting the things that I'm selling, and do I have enough time each week to make that work and still put out great content? And this is why I think this part where content marketing strategy is rooted in the why, to me, that's where, like I said, we get clear with our priorities. We get clear with exactly where we are leveraging our talent, our skill, and our time in the best way. And, you know, it takes a little while to kind of suss this out. It is, like I said, a process. It's not necessarily a question that you answer right away. Sometimes if you're like David and I'm sure, David, you've had this experience where essentially you stumble through for a little while. Sometimes you get behind. Sometimes you feel like, oh, you know, I'm just not hitting my goals the way I want to. And I think the key is don't give up. Keep revisiting that why and keep understanding, like I said, where you really should be focusing and spending your time. And from here, once you're basically working on your content marketing strategy, I think this literally naturally turns into what is often referred to as the content plan. So this is where you get into the specifics and the nitty-gritty. And I do want to say, I know this part of the process can be hard because sometimes it requires that you take a little bit of time away from your day-to-day marketing and you actually spend maybe a couple of weeks or a month or maybe even a quarter really putting together a schedule, putting together a list of the actual tools that you're going to use, really putting together this concrete system that you have now created so that you can not only use all the content that you have available, but also efficiently create new content with a clear plan and then actually take the action at the end. That's where I see the content plan is usually associated with the doing of the work. So again, you're going to see a lot of these phrases interchanged, but I wanted you to understand the relationship between them. And I think each one of us may be in a different phase. Some of us may be needing to think about how we are, actually even assessing kind of what the content is that we have available, even assessing what our messages really truly are. This is where I think you're just taking that macro view, right? And looking at what are our assets, what are our resources, what do we have that we can really use already. Then we move into, okay, now we want to understand, why are we going to do it? Why in July are we going to talk about this topic? Why in September will we talk about this topic? Why will we approach these three audiences with these messages, right? So it's where we start to get into the really sort of marketing piece, the foundational marketing pieces that we need. And from there, we move into the content plan, which is really, how am I going to implement all these ideas I just had in those first two phases, right? Because ideas are great, but they're not going anywhere if we don't actually implement them and turn them into something actionable. So again, I just wanted to relate all of these things so that you can figure out where you are in this mix, especially for that 60% of you in the poll that were saying you either don't have a content strategy or you're not sure if you have a content strategy. I think really, if we're going to start doing content marketing, you want to start by saying, okay, do we have a handle on that bigger piece? If we know what kind of content assets we have, all right, cool. Do we know why we want to talk about certain things? Why we want to approach certain people? And then from there, how are we going to take that to an actual doable, actionable kind of position, right? So that we know we're going to be posting to social media each week about this topic. We're going to be blogging each month. We're going to be sending emails each month about this topic, right? So we have to sort of flow all of those things together. So identify where you are in that mix, because I think it helps you figure out what your starting points should be. Now, going back to David's comment earlier, there are really big obstacles that come up. And I not only see this because I do content marketing and I actually experience these obstacles firsthand. So it's not just a theory. It is something that over the last 17 years, I've struggled with all of the things on these lists or on this list. But it's also something that I see a lot of my students, a lot of my consulting clients are also struggling with. So many times when I'm coaching and consulting with people, or I'm even working with them more closely on them, on their actual content marketing strategy, what I find is the same things kind of come up over and over for people. And again, I think David sort of hit on one of these already. But essentially, content fatigue is something we're all battling. So again, this just means we all feel this pressure to put out tons of content. I don't know about all of you. I follow a couple of wonderful thought leaders and influencers online. One of my favorites is Gary Vaynerchuk. Of course, he is a big, promoter of putting out content all day, every day. It's funny because even though I really believe in a lot of what he says, I really respect his approach, I have to be aware that for me, if I was taking that approach, I would be exhausted and frustrated. Right? I'm not necessarily the type of person who wants to document my entire day and share it with people online. So we all have to figure out where we fall into this mix. And even if it's just to create a level of awareness about where your fatigue begins, it's important. Because when you're doing this work, if you get burnt out, again, your creativity is going to suffer, your consistency is going to suffer, you're not going to enjoy yourself. And in my world, hopefully marketing is fun. Right? I've definitely had days in my life where marketing sucks, and I don't want that to be my day-to-day experience. So one of the biggest things I've done is really know when I'm hitting that fatigue point. And when I hit content fatigue, I have to make some important choices to refuel my creativity, to connect with other people that I know, to get inspired or to get second opinions, fresh eyes on things. So that's something I think a lot of us are running into just because of the nature of digital communications. Also, we see people struggle with inconsistency. That means that your content marketing strategy and the plan you're creating out of that, they're not consistent enough, right? So they're not actually in a pace that's regular. I often see with my students, sometimes people are saying, oh my gosh, I have to tweet. Oh my gosh, I have to post on Facebook. Oh my goodness, I have to write a blog. They're kind of chasing the marketing instead of leading the marketing. And so, of course, in all of marketing, consistency is key. And it's really important that we really have a schedule. Even if that schedule is only once a month, that's fine. Start with something small, but get into a rhythm. And then, David, I see your comment. You're actually too embarrassed to post because you're too inconsistent. And I totally understand that, that frustration for sure, that can happen, because sometimes you've disappeared for so long. It's almost like you've ghosted people in your social media world, right? So sometimes when you come back from that, it feels a little awkward. I do want to encourage you, though, to break that ice. Sometimes it's best to just actually say the truth. We haven't been here in a while, but we wanted to share something important, right? So it's okay to just, as a company, as an organization, to just be completely straightforward and say, hey, we acknowledge that we haven't been showing up on Twitter for the last 6 months, but we do have something important to share, and go ahead and post it. Because again, every time you update your social accounts especially, but even with email lists, this will work. Even with blogging, I think it works, to just have that transparency. And sometimes that can create a stronger connection with people because they know there's a human being on the other end of that content. The other things people are struggling with is distraction. That means that you're struggling with your focus when it comes to content. I find that watching the trends is really important from a listening perspective. It can also distract me from sticking to the plan that I've created, right? And sticking to the why that I've already identified. If I listen to the hype, sometimes I get too sucked into things, then I lose my focus and I'm diluting my kind of conversation, right? And so instead of really focusing in on the message I want to share with people, I'm starting to kind of spread the message out, and it's getting watered down by other things. So I think we always want to be figuring out, how can we gain more focus? We're going to talk a little bit about campaigns, which I think are a really important part of this. And then, of course, generalization and neutrality. So 2 things that come up in content. One, people are too generalized. They're afraid to be speaking very specifically to one group of people or about one niche topic because they don't want to deter other people. But I think we want to reverse engineer our thinking on that and realize that actually the more that we can talk specifically to people about their problems, their issues, their needs, the more likely they are to respond. And so in my world, it's okay to go after niches and really focus in on a conversation that is maybe specifically for one group of people. Get them really active and excited and engaged, and then to continue that conversation out and include other niches and other groups of people. So I've had a great experience this week of teaching with a partner out in California, and she was saying yesterday in a class that she taught, that we're sort of co-teaching this month, the riches are in the niches. And I really laughed so hard because I love that. I feel like I'm always telling people we have to step away from generalizations. When people are on their phone and they're scrolling like this through messaging, right? Whether it's their email, their social, websites, whatever it is, when they're scrolling through that quickly, if you're too generalized and broad, you don't connect to them. And so it's really, I think we want to let go of that fear that by being more specific, we're chasing people away. We're really not. What we're doing is we're going to engage smaller groups of people over time in a bigger way that's more impactful. And then David, I see your comment as well. Marketing to the wrong people is time wasted. And so, if you're posting to a too wide market, what happens sometimes is only 5% of that whole market might really be interested in what you're offering. So you're spending a lot of energy on content for this big group of people, but who's actually going to convert? And so we're going to talk a little bit about that again as we talk about campaigns and more about strategy. But we really want to move away from that generalized approach. And that relates to neutrality, right? So neutrality is the other thing that we want to avoid. And I don't know if any of you are feeling this as we've gone into 2020, but I feel like I've been teaching this statement for a long time. This is even more important to me now because with emotions high and all the different changes that are happening in our country and other countries, I think for brands to come out kind of what I would consider sort of bland and neutral, it's not getting a response. Right? And in some ways, I think people are interpreting it as if you're coming out sort of neutral with nothing to say, then you're not really relevant to what's happening right now. And you're trying to go about it like business as usual, when we all pretty much know right now, business is not as it usually would be. So I think we want to really think about our values as a brand. We want to think about how those come through in our messages. And we want to allow ourselves to have a little bit more of that emotional conversation with people. And again, I've always really supported this approach to marketing because I think it's more authentic and I think it makes real deep connections with people instead of those surface level connections, which don't really build loyalty in the long run. So really with neutrality, I think each brand has to decide what kind of emotions, what kind of archetypes you want to embody, right? Where is your comfort level? How does it really relate to the core vision and mission and messages that you have? But we do want to really challenge ourselves to get away from, I think, like I said, trying to avoid, the fact that there are all these high emotions. And those high emotions are impacting all industries. They're impacting every customer that we have, really no matter what it is that we offer. And then Jojo, I see your question. Do you think it's possible to target a couple of different niches at the same time, extremely different, but with totally different strategies? Yes, I do. I do think it's possible, and that's really through the idea of, like I said, campaigning. And I think what you want to think about is that the content, even if you're selling the same products and services to two completely different groups of people, what it comes down to is really like you just described, coming up with a content marketing strategy that then includes two content plans that are really going to focus in on angling the messages to those two groups. So it might consist of things like creating different types of social media graphics for each one of those niches, having a different landing page on your website for each one of those niches, even segmenting your emails so that people inside of those niches, if they join your newsletter, can select which niche that they're actually part of, right? So all of those things would, I think, help you build a stronger approach there. So what are the 5 steps? We're going to run through this, but then I'm also going to go live on our classroom and just show you kind of how I break this down into actionable items. But I just want to go over what these 5 steps are. And again, I want to encourage you to go out there, and after we complete this webinar, you'll get a copy of this recorded, and you'll also get a copy of my entire slide deck. So I want to encourage you to click on the links and go read what other people are saying about this topic, because I have my approach, which obviously I've shared with everyone else at the Institute, and I've built some programming around my approach with our Content Strategy Roadmap course. But it is important, I think, to look at what other experts are doing, how they kind of contextually put things together, the steps they think are important, and just compare them. So I just want to encourage everybody to do that, because as I've refined my personal approach, which is the 5 steps I'm sharing today, I've done that by really paying attention to what other people are doing, because there's no sort of one route to success. We all forge our own path. If we have some basic understanding of the best practices and what's happening and really the goals that we're trying to accomplish, a lot of us then forge our own pathway through the digital wilderness to our own success. So I just want to encourage you to be thinking about that. And like I said, we're going to talk about that more the last 15 minutes or so. But the 5 steps are, number 1, branding. So again, this is a very common word that we throw around a lot. I want to say branding is more than just the visuals, it's the values of your business, and it's the stories that you tell. And it's an incredibly important part of doing good content marketing strategy, because you really need to not just know what the brand is and know the mission and vision, but then really understand how that transforms itself into actual content, whether it's video, written, imagery, graphics, whatever it is. How does that core stuff, like I said, the foundational principles of mission and vision and values, how do they all become the actual words on a page, or the actual blogs on our website, or the actual videos on our Facebook, right? How do we actually make that transformation? So you want to spend some time really taking some steps to dig into that. And I've been reading this great ebook that one of Justin's team members at the agency, Mandy Gardner, shared with me. And they had a quote in there I really liked. It was, "Building a digital strategy gives brands a place to start in their fight to remain relevant in the digital economy." And what I thought was amazing is this was written probably about 4 years ago. And I was like, wow, at the beginning of 2020, this statement is really, really important. So I think, part of content marketing strategy is really about this. How are we going to remain relevant online to people as the world shifts and changes, right? So I think that's where all of us right now in this moment, we have to go back to our core brand and really think about who it is that our brand is trying to be. What do we really want to represent? How are we going to represent it? We want to feel really strong and confident about that as we go into our marketing overall, but especially when we're on digital tools, communicating and putting out content. Right now, I'm sure some of you have seen that if you're not careful in the way that you do things, you can easily end up with your customers calling you tone deaf or insensitive, right? So it's really, really important to think about, where does the brand stand right now? Are there things that we need to be able to think about before we continue marketing on a regular basis and putting our content out? And how can we make sure that we're adapting to the current situation? The second step is research. And I like to just say research is really just listening, right? I'm sort of a research geek. It's one of my favorite things to do. Not everybody loves it. But I do think if you want to reframe what it really is, it's really about just listening. And listening is a top priority in marketing. But again, in 2020, to me, it is hugely important to be listening right now to the people in your network and to your community and to the world at large, to make sure, again, that you're adapting to the things that are going on and that you have a really strong voice that you're confident in, that is accomplishing your goals, but also really making connections with people. So research what people are talking about. Research how they're connecting. So do you see that more people are active on Instagram versus Facebook versus Twitter? Do you see what kind of stats you're getting on your email marketing, and that there's certain things people are really relating to and certain things that aren't really driving much action? You can really learn about how to create better content that serves people more just by listening and doing this type of research. So doing things like keyword research for search engine optimization, doing hashtag research for social media, and even researching your own competition so that you can really see, hey, there's a company over here, they talk to the same audiences I want to talk to. How can I really follow their lead in some ways and learn from their audience what people are getting excited about, what types of things that they're really responding to. Even if you just have 3 competitors that you're interested in following, and they don't always have to be in your industry. Like I said, sometimes they can just share your audience. They can just have a similar brand style or feel. But watch some people and try to get a feel for the folks that you want to really make a connection with when it comes to content. Where do you see them online? What do you think they're talking about? And there's so many tools about that. So feel free to let me know if you have questions about those tools. But again, another great quote from this ebook I've been reading, it doesn't really matter what your industry is or what your marketplace is delivering. You have to look at what the disruptors and the innovators and the leaders are delivering. So again, this is just sort of a plug to, look at the competition, look at the people or the companies or the brands that you aspire to be in the long run, right? So it's okay to look at somebody who's already achieved the things that you want to achieve and really try to learn by participating in their content, paying attention to it, signing up for their email list, going on to their Facebook, going on to their Twitter, looking at their website, reading their blog. If you can pay attention to the way that they're doing things and make a note of what seems to be really working for them, you can really learn a lot about how you might want to approach your own content marketing strategy. The third step is distribution. So this is where we get into the channels that you choose. Are we going to use Facebook versus Instagram versus Pinterest? Are we going to have an email marketing campaign? Are we going to blog? Are we going to do advertising on Facebook or Google? The distribution step is really about putting your toolkit together. So to me, this is really where we have to choose our tools wisely. Don't listen to the hype. Don't do anything just because other people told you. Really think about, is this something that I want to do? Is it something that I can do? Do I really believe that the people I want to reach are on the other end of the line if I begin using this tool? Or even, let's say, with email marketing, it comes down to, do I have the energy and the skill right now to build a list or to even start a small list with my current customers? If I feel comfortable doing that, great. That should maybe be part of my toolkit. It's low-hanging fruit for me to start an email list of people who already know me and really invite them to participate in a new email marketing campaign or newsletter. In addition to choosing your tools wisely, part of that is really knowing how to leverage your talents and skills. So this just comes down to, if you're not a great writer, that's okay. If you're not great on video, that's okay. If you're not a great graphic designer, that's okay. Figure out what you are good at, because there are ways to get help with things like editing or creating graphics, right? There are ways to get tools that would make it easier for you to do those things on your own. But you want to leverage your talents and skills and then look for the holes, right? And how you can actually ask other people to help you in some way to fill those holes. But I think one thing that we all know about marketing is if you try to force yourself to do something that you hate, it typically doesn't work out. Because most of the time, if I force myself to do something I hate to do, I'm probably going to procrastinate. I'm going to lose my focus. I'm not really going to do my best work. So I think that's something we all have to truly evaluate inside of ourselves. And if we're willing to learn something new and get better at it, then we have to commit to that process and know that it won't happen instantly. And then, like I said, build off what you have. So if you already have a Facebook page that you've been using and it's small, that's low-hanging fruit. If you've already got a website that could easily have a blog added to it, that's low-hanging fruit where you maybe could get started by creating more content for your website. If you already have a small list of the last 50 customers you worked with, you could definitely invite them all to become part of some type of newsletter or email list and then start marketing to them, because it's something that you already have at your fingertips to get the ball rolling. So what channels are you going to use? This is really, like I said, what time, what resources, and what energy do you have to put into it? And there's all sorts of different options when it comes to content marketing strategy. You can use email, social media, advertising, your website, search engines. All these different things are part of content marketing, and it really comes down to, there's no one way to do it. All sorts of people put together their plans and execute in different ways, and they get results. So it's funny, some people win on Facebook, some people lose, some people have great email lists, some people's email list doesn't do anything. I really think it's because they didn't spend time really putting together, where do I want to spend my time? How do I leverage my talents? What makes the most sense? So strategy defines both what you will and won't do. So don't be afraid to say no to things. It's okay. The fourth step is going into advertising. Not everybody goes into this right away, depending on their budget, but I do think advertising can be a very valuable tactic when it comes to getting your content in front of your own audience, as well as getting your content in front of new audiences that maybe haven't heard about your brand yet. So just a few tips: set goals and create campaigns, right? So when we're going after niches, we want to have goals around our niches and create campaigns for those niches. Those campaigns can include multiple tools or one tool. They can include multiple messages or one message. It depends on how long the campaign is going to run. But you want to target people, very specific people, with clear intentions, and you want to be very relevant to them. And when you're doing advertising, you can't sort of just create the campaigns and then walk away. You really want to test and learn and consider your advertising campaigns kind of organic. You're going to be learning while they're actually happening, making adjustments to try to make things work better. And if possible, split your budget. So think about how you could split your budget between 2 or 3 niches, or split your budget between testing a few different audiences or a few different products or services. And remember, like I said, what Chef AJ says, the riches are in the niches, because I really believe that. I really believe it's important. So developing an internal culture of digital agility is as important as any digital strategy initiative. So we want to be strategic, but we don't want to be rigid, right? Agility is really important in all of digital marketing, because really we learn while we go. We watch what people respond to and we adjust to keep moving in that direction. And the last step is partnerships. So partners, like I said, we really want to find people that are active, engaged, intentional, aligned with your values, willing to reciprocate the partnership, but other people saying that your brand is awesome is really more important than you saying it's awesome. So partnerships come in a lot of different flavors. They're very powerful. Again, you can partner with people through email, through social, through website linking, through blogging, all these different types of content tools that we use. You can be sitting down with partners and figuring out how to help each other spark conversations, get more attention to each other's content and messaging. And how consumers connect digitally to each other and the brands they favor is now the centerpiece of business strategy as a whole. So I think what we're really talking about with partnerships is really understanding the people we want to reach. What do they care about? What are they paying attention to? What are they focusing on? So again, just to give you a visual on this, I want to share with you our content strategy roadmap. And I see we've got a quick question. So Nancy, I see your question, how to balance not getting distracted by trends and being relevant to the now. So yeah, I do want to comment on that really quickly. I think with that balancing act, what it really comes down to is, to me, if you're clear on the why behind your content strategy, who are we reaching, and what exactly it is that we want to say, right? What is the message? Why is that message important? Why do we want to connect that message to those people? When we get really centered around that, when we're looking at the trends and following the trends, we're much better at prioritizing which trends really apply to that why, which trends are really aligned with the goals associated with that why, and which trends are just kind of hype. Right? So a good example of this would be, I've had some people come to me and say, should I get on Twitch right now as a brand? And when we look at it, I don't feel like that tool really makes sense right now. It doesn't link in to any of the other content stuff that we're working on already. And that might be a market we'll open up down the road. But right now, just because that's kind of trendy to be there, or let's say TikTok is the same thing, it's trendy to be on TikTok, doesn't really serve our core purpose. Is it really aligned with that why? So that's really what I'm focusing on. I want to pay attention to what's happening in the now and be relevant and respond to it, but I don't want to get involved in things that really pull us from the core goals of our campaigns, because again, if we get distracted, then we're inconsistent. So hopefully that helps kind of explain how you would take that approach. But again, I want to go ahead and just show you, if we go to our classroom, I just wanted to show you this in our classroom because I think it's a great visual. And again, any other questions about anything related to what we're talking about, feel free to start popping them in that Q&A. Justin's here, I can have him answer some as well. But essentially, I just wanted you to see in our classroom, and I see that one that just popped up, I'll grab it in just a moment. But essentially, we have our 5 steps literally broken down in our program. So the Content Strategy Roadmap is an online course that students take so that they can put together their content marketing strategy and also have their content marketing plans, right? Which is their actual actionable things. Some students have one plan. Some students, because they're planning their content marketing strategy for the year, might have multiple content plans inside of that one strategy. So you'll see we break it down right into the branding, research, distribution, advertising, and partnerships. So those are our 5 core steps. And what I really wanted to show you is just how underneath of each one of these steps, each individual student or client or whoever it is that we'd be working with is going to figure out what belongs in this step. So if you're a sole proprietor, under each one of these 5 things, you might only have 1 or 2 actionable items that you move forward because you're one person with only so much time per week to work on marketing. If you're a marketing professional and your whole job is to work on marketing 40 hours a week, then you might have 5 or 6 different things that fall under each step of branding, research, distribution, and so forth. So you can see when we look at branding, we really start digging into a few different things like storytelling, understanding content branding, like I said, which is that transformation of taking the brand of your business or organization and turning it into stories and content and videos and messages, right? You'll see as we keep going, we talk about campaigns. That's where we're really looking at which audiences, what messages do we want to send to them? How can we really put that campaign together ahead of time and then know as we move into research and distribution, which channels we're going to put that campaign out on, right? And even understanding our websites in this core part is really important, understanding how our websites play a role. And so if we jump up to the questions, I see Miranda, thoughts on paid versus free content. Free content feels more accessible for a lot of people, but less valued. So I think that when it comes to free versus paid, to me, it's about that campaign mindset and really thinking about how you're moving people through a journey where they might first interact with free content, but over time, you'd be capturing information that allows you to give them the potential to get in contact with your paid content. So free content, I think, is really valuable and important, especially from people that don't know about you, because the truth is nobody's going to buy from you if they've never heard of you before. They are usually going to have to build a relationship, regardless of channel, hear about you a few times, engage with you in some way for free before they actually give you money. So I think the free content's really valuable, but I do think it has to lead people somewhere. It has to be a part of a bigger perspective, if that makes sense. And Justin, do you want to weigh in on that as well? Thoughts on paid versus free content?
Sure. So paid versus free content. Can you give me a little more context on are you talking about for promotion on social, or are you talking about for like gated content versus giving content away as part of content marketing?
And so Miranda, I hope you heard that question. If you want to answer it, go ahead.
Yeah, I see the question. Usually, I mean, typically the best funnels are where you have some free content that is very attractive to your target audience, but you gate the higher valued content. So for example, I mean, just a couple of examples come to mind. This webinar is free, but our course that Sarah just showed costs $69 a month. We feel that we want to give away information because we like helping people and we want to be useful and we want to build our audience. But to make a living as marketers, we have to create something that we can sell as well. So that's why we have free ebooks and we have free webinars. We do public speaking that's free. And then we also have courses and workshops and half day seminars and 2-day seminars that are where we make our income. Another example of that line, I'm like actively monitoring the launch of a virtual event that we're doing for one of our clients. And that entire event has a free component and then 2 paid components. The free component is valuable. It's basically like 30 interviews with experts that are pre-recorded and uploaded into a library and available for 1 week. And if that's all you do, that takes a tremendous amount of work to coordinate 30 interviews with experts who are, some of them are like in high demand, and put together the site where that content is released. But there's also 2 upgrades that you can buy with that event. And one is additional fitness and cooking classes happening during the week, plus a 1-year access to all the recordings in case you can't get them all in that week. And we're charging $80 for that. And then they'll go up, the price will go up to $90 next week, and then it'll go up to $120 in a month, and then it'll come back down after the event's over a little bit. And people will be able to buy the access to the content after they lose their week-long access. We also have a VIP program, which has live interviews with the top 15 most revered speakers happening during the 7 days, plus a DVD set of those lectures, plus a workbook of those lectures. That's $140. And that we've been marketing it for 1 week. We've had 2,300 people sign up for the free. And so far, 50 people have bought one of those 2 packages, and it's still 2 months away. So that event's going to be very successful, and it has a free component. And the free component is the front door. So every business model can have a different hierarchy. And if your business model is to do something in person with people, like provide teaching classes or tours, the free content might just be how you get out there and get people to find you. And then they come and they want to do what you offer in person. If your business is entirely online, then you have to have those stepping stones. And in our world, a lot of times people build what we call like a series of products, where you might have webinars that are only $20 or $50 happening every couple of months. And then you might have a small group that costs more. You might have a VIP program that costs even more. And you just have this sort of like where your customers that love you the most pay for that higher price point, where the masses might pay for a lower price point, and build a overall business model that works.
Yeah, so thanks for that, Justin, because I think those are really great examples. Hopefully, Miranda, that really helps you kind of understand that relationship between the paid and free, because I do think free content matters. Gary Vaynerchuk wrote a book called Jab, 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 Right Hook, and it's his basic perspective that, especially with social media, you have to give, and then ask people for something. So he definitely has a very strong principle of creating free content, giving people access to you in a way that makes them build that relationship with you, but then not forgetting to also give them that opportunity to upgrade, to spend some money and get more access or more support or whatever it is that you offer. So yeah, I'm glad that's helpful. So again, if there's any other questions for Justin and I, please feel free to chat them in. Like I said, as we're looking at this layout of our classroom with branding, research, content distribution, I just wanted you all, like I said, when you're thinking about your own content marketing strategy, think about these 5 steps that I'm giving you. And then each step, there's almost going to be tasks or subtasks under there, right? So you really want to think about, if we're going to research, what kind of research are we going to do? Which competitors do we want to look at? Are we going to look at keywords, hashtags, and so forth? If we're looking at distribution, that's where we really start to say, okay, parts of that distribution step are going to be creating our content calendar, putting together our social media tools and really understanding which platforms we're using and how we're using them, really looking at things like email marketing, how we want to create our lists, thinking about how our website, again, can be more integrated in the distribution of our content. So each one of these 5 steps is going to have multiple sort of action items underneath of them. And like I said, I just wanted to share this visual because I feel like it helps you sort of see what it is that you can do to start putting things in an organized structure, again, so they become more of something that can be implemented and less of just an idea in your head. And Jojo, I see your question for Justin. What's your favorite thing happening these days that you think you can use to make the new normal awesome? So that's just a general question, but I don't know if you want to jump in on that, Justin.
Well, I don't know, honestly, because I'm kind of going between working and hanging with the family. And honestly, like being able to work from home is great. And I work, like today I didn't start work until 11, and then I want to work late after the baby and my wife are asleep. I can get everything done. So working from home and just being able to do that has been a blessing. And I'm grateful that my business models and 3 companies that I own, including the one with Sarah here, allow that. I know not every business allows that. But I'm going to take a break, and help my wife out this afternoon for an hour between meetings and jump back online at 8 o'clock and work for another 4 or 5 hours tonight, and get my work done. So that's how I've been doing it for the last month or two, and it's been going okay. But I'm not consuming any any entertainment content, really. Not doing a whole lot socially, other than hanging out with neighbors here and there in our backyard and in our neighborhood. But yeah, I've just been really busy. The businesses are all pivoting and changing and adapting, and that's taking a lot of work. But I enjoy what I do, so I don't mind it.
I'll just throw in too that I think one of the things I'm having the most fun with, and I want to just acknowledge how lucky I am that I get to have that fun. I've really, because of my social life, taking kind of a hit over the last 3 months. One of the things that's really helped me from a creativity perspective is just having these moments to be outside as the weather gets warmer. And I don't have kids, so a lot of times I have some time in my day where I'm by myself. And one of the things I've just really appreciated about the last 3 months is being able to go sit outside in the warmer weather and really just relax, breathe, let my mind kind of float. And it's really allowed me to have a number of really awesome ideas from a creativity perspective around my own content, my own promotions, and things like that. So I think, I've realized I don't take a lot of quiet time to myself, which can be really valuable as a creative person. So that's something I've really been learning as we've been going along. So yeah, again, I know we're right at the top of the hour, so I want to let everyone head back to their day. Again, you'll get a copy of this recording along with the slides. And for anyone who's interested in actually getting support to create their content marketing strategy, you can check out our class, contentstrategyroadmap.com. It is an on-demand class at $69 a month, and everyone who's on the call today can get a free month by using this code, free month. So if you'd like to just check it out, even take a month and just watch some of the content, think about things, ask me questions. I'm there 5 days a week through the online classroom to interact with you and assist with anything I can. And we do another live call similar to this, but just for students every month, where you get to talk to me and ask me questions as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, but I will stay on the line to answer any additional questions if you'd like. And so if you want to continue to submit questions, go right ahead. But otherwise, have a really great day. And thanks so much again for joining us for our JB Media Digital Drop-In.
Thank you, Sarah. Wonderful job. I got to jump off, but I really appreciate you putting this content together for everyone.
No problem. Have a great day.
Thanks.
And David, I see your question. How do you sign up for this content? So yeah, you can go to contentstrategyroadmap.com if you're interested in the class. You can watch a video about the class and learn more about it. And if you'd like to give it a try, you can definitely use our free month code to get a month free and work on things. But thanks for being here, Nancy, Hunter, Michelle, Tammy. So glad to see all of you. Thanks so much, Carolyn. And again, Jojo, appreciate having you here. I know Justin's really been enjoying being a dad the last few months. It's been really exciting. Joy is really special, so it's been great to be a part of that too this year. It's really nice to have something positive and wonderful to look at in 2020 right now. And thanks for being here, Mary. Great to have you. And again, if anybody has any additional questions or thoughts, once you get the recording and the slides, don't hesitate to reach out to me anytime. I'm always on email and willing to provide additional feedback if there's something I can help with, or to share links to other resources. So great to see you, Heidi. So glad you were here. Brooke, thanks for being here. I'm so glad to see all you folks. I'm really glad this was helpful to everyone. I really appreciate it.